Hi there, this is Joe Woodring. I did my paper this semester on flipping the classroom. So I thought for my final project it would be interesting to look at some of the things that I do in my classroom where I use the flipped model. So the first thing that you can see on my screen right now that we're at khanacademy.org. And Khan Academy is probably the biggest change that I've made in my classroom as a result of taking this class this semester. So I wanted to show you guys basically what I do with the website in my class. So right now I'm on the home page. I'm going to kind of show you what I did with my students to get them set up so that I can monitor their progress. Basically, if you click on coaches right here, they were each, when I generated my classes, I was able to generate codes for them to join the class. So they would type the code in here, click join the class, and then it shows up with my name here as a coach. And I'm signed in on my teacher account, so you can't see that right now. But basically what I'm able to do as their coach for my students, if I click on the progress button here, is I can see all the things that my students have done. Actually, I take that back. I realize this is my progress on the things that I personally have done. If I want to look at the progress of my students, I have to click up on the coaching button up here. And then if I look at, this is one of my classes I set up, and you see some of my students. Probably shouldn't show their names, but it's too late for that. If I click on the student progress, I'm able to see this first graph shows me the total skills mastered in the Algebra 1 mission. This is for one of my algebra classes. So right now, everyone who's in the class is less than 10% done with the entire program, which makes sense because we just started doing this a week or two ago in class. But as I scroll down, if I click on the activity from, and let's say I look at all time, it's going to show me how much progress my kids have made since I first started the program with them. So as you can see, that shows the points for each student, and you can select in the activity range what time period you want. So it's easy to monitor if your kids have done work that day, because if you just click on today, it will show you if they've done anything, they'll have points, and if they haven't, then they'll have 0 points. Another thing that we can do in here, if I go to skills progress, that shows me, let's see if I can pick on so I've jumped over to the activity button up here. I think this is really cool because it shows me each student's name and how much time they've spent on specific topics. So for example, if I go just hover over this, it shows me the time period in class, 11:47 a.m. to 12:16 p.m. That this student was working on, and it shows me the videos they were working on and the skills they were working on, and then how much time they spent. And I can do that for each student. Shows the different skills they were working on and the time limit that they spent, so I can see the progress that the kids make every day in class. Another cool thing is if I click up on the grid, I'm able to see a bunch of different skills, and it's color-coded by the progress that they've made. So if they have a light blue, it means their status is level 1. So the range of skills for Khan Academy goes from something that's not practiced at all to something that's level 1 to something level 2 and then to something that's mastered. So if they're light blue, it shows that they've tried it but they haven't done a whole lot of work with the concept yet. If it's dark blue, they've mastered it. So you can see addition within 20, pretty much everyone has mastered that. It's a pretty basic concept for algebra. This slightly in-between shade of blue is a level 2, so they've done a little bit more work with it, but they haven't quite proven to the website that they've mastered it yet. And then you can see some of these things on here show red, and red means that they're struggling with it. So the topics that I've seen that they struggle with tend to be things either that we haven't covered yet because Khan Academy just throws concepts at them and because they're taking the Algebra 1 class right now, they haven't seen the entire course content yet, so I haven't taught them everything. So some of them might be struggling, like you can see this person is struggling with estimating square roots. And we haven't really talked too much about that in class yet, which, so, it makes sense. But at the same time, there are other kids who've mastered the concept, and there's, kids who just practiced it or, might be on level 1. The nice thing about this is if I see a topic, as we go through the year where a lot of kids have read on, it lets me know right away this, hey, this is something that you need to cover in class some more. So it looks like right here, I need to cover adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators and word problems. That's definitely things I've seen that kids hate over the years. Fractions, where they don't have the same denominator, or just fractions in general, and they always hate word problems. Word problems are always things that we need to practice more on. So that's some cool stuff that I can see as a teacher that helps me analyze my class. Next, I want to go back to the home page and look at some of the stuff that the kids actually do when they sign into the class. So I'm going to look at my Algebra 1 class. You can see this is my level, how far I've completed since we've started. I like to do the challenges along with the students, kind of as a competition, so they can see if they can catch up with me or try to beat me on some things. But anyway, so I click on resume, and basically what Khan Academy does is it just sets up topics for you, and you go through topic by topic by topic, and you practice them. And once you've practiced them, they'll give you something called a mastery challenge, and it shows that my next mastery challenge I can't take for another 6 hours. So I might get to that at school tomorrow, but I'm definitely not going to get to it right now because it's in the evening and I'm not going to be awake for another 6 hours. But let's see, if I click on practice, this is the next topic it wants me to work on. It says that this topic is converting from point slope to slope intercept form. And if I get the first one correct, it will say I've done a good job. If I don't get it correct, then I have to get 5 in a row before I can move on. So basically, I read the question, put my answer in, then I hit check answer. And if I get it right, then I get to move on. If I don't know this, it can give me hints, or I can watch a video. And the videos are that's the flipped part of the classroom, because I don't have to sit there and explain things to the kids. They can just watch the video and have the topic explained to them, which makes it really awesome because this process is not confined to being in class. They can do this outside of the class as well. So real quick, I'm going to do some numbers in my head, and I'm going to see if I can get this question right. I know my slope is -4. If I distribute this -4 times -2, that gives me an 8, positive 8. I have to subtract 6, so this should be 2. Let's check my answer. Awesome, I got it right. So it says I can show my points. I just earned some points, and then I could continue on to the next task, and it automatically just pulls up the next topic. I'm not going to do any more of those right now, but you can see like I have points here, and it's fun. I have a lot more points than my students. I've done a lot more work on this outside of class than they have. But it's just fun because it gives you points. It lets you customize your avatar. You can see up here I have my avatar. If I click on this, I have advanced a certain level to get that avatar. It gives you badges when you complete things, and it shows all the different things that you've earned. So it's really cool for motivating kids and showing them how they can progress in the class. And they can do this outside of class as well as inside class, and it just makes my life easier because everything is set up for them, and I don't have to stand up in the front of the room. They can work on their own, and then I can just walk around and address issues as they come up. Another thing I wanted to work on was showing, like, creating my own videos, because Khan Academy, it's all set up for you. I don't really make my own videos. So next we're going to look at one of the questions that I recently gave my students on an AP statistics test. And they've already taken the test and they're going to get their scores back soon. But I wanted to create like a tutorial for how to go over one of the questions, like the thought processes that they need to work through as they think about the question. So this question here says a coin is tossed 5 times, and they need to find the probability of getting at least one tail in the 5 tosses. So some of them just say, okay, the coin's tossed 5 times. I need to get one tail. Probability of getting a tail is a half to, I don't know. And then they just get stuck. So here's the thing that they need to think through. It says first we need to determine the probability of getting a tail on one toss. Whoops, I have a typo. I was supposed to say on one toss. Obviously, the probability of getting a tail on one toss is 0.5 or a half. Next, it's important to realize that getting at least one tail and getting no tails are mutually exclusive and complementary events. This means that if you get at least one tail and you get no tails, they're like opposites. So their combined probability is 1. That's what a complementary event means. And then once you find these probabilities, you just subtract the answer from 1 to get the other probability. So if you know the probability for getting at least one tail, to get the probability for no tails, you do 1 minus the first probability. So we know that the probability for getting no tails is 1/2 to the 5th power, because the probability of a tail is a half, and there's 5 tosses, so to the 5th power, and that's this number, 0.03125. Therefore, the probability of getting at least one tail would be 1 minus that first probability, so 1 minus 0.03125, and you get 0.96875, and that's your answer for part A. The second part, part B, says we need to find the probability of getting exactly 4 tails. And for this part, we need to know all the possible combinations of 5 coin flips. So for example, we could get HH, HHH, 5 heads, or TT, TTT, 5 tails. Specifically here, we need to find the number of ways to get 4 tails and 1 heads, and then how many possible outcomes there are in total. So the ways that we can get 4 tails are the first four tosses or tails and then a heads, or we get a heads on the 4th toss or a heads on the 3rd toss, that's here, a heads on the 2nd toss or a heads on the 1st toss, and all the other tosses each time are tails. So that's 5 total combinations where we have 4 tails. And the way you find the total outcomes possible of every possible combination of 5 tosses is by raising the number of outcomes on one flip, which is 2, because you can get heads or tails, to the power of the number of flips you're doing, which is 5. So you're basically doing 2 to the 5th power, which is 32. So there's 32 possible outcomes. So to get your answer of getting exactly 4 tails, you just do this number 5, the number of combinations of your event, out of the total possible, 32. 5 out of 32, and you get 0.15625. So that's basically just an example of what I could do as creating my own video to show to my students so they could watch at home and see explanation for a question to know whether or not they got it right. Lastly, I just wanted to talk about some of my sources that I got for creating this video. These are sources I pulled off of my paper that I wrote this semester. One of the biggest sources that I had that influenced me was this site from the Flipped Learning Network, which explained the four pillars of flip, which are, if I come back up here in my paper, first pillar F stands for the flexible environment, and that your learning environment needs to be flexible inside your classroom. The second one is the learning culture, which requires the students to be the center of the instruction. The third principle is the intentional content, which focuses on the teacher creating lessons that are designed to maximize student learning. And the last one, professional educator, basically just says the teacher has to do more behind the scenes for preparation and less in-class instruction, i.e. you create a video, it takes time to set up behind the scenes. Some of my other sources that I found really helpful were, let me go to this one first. This says it's from Thompson about how Khan Academy is changing the rules of education. Basically, this is a big video of it and showing how Khan Academy was set up and everything. So that's what taught me how to do the flipped learning. So that's my final project, showing videos of how I can create the flipped classroom in my room and what I do specifically. Thanks, it's been a good semester. This is Joe Woodring signing off.